City Council meeting. Please rise for the invocation. Pastor, please introduce yourself.
My name is James Julian. I'm the pastor at New Life Church, and I've been there, this is my 6th year. And so I want to say, this is another day in paradise, right? This is one of the reasons why we, I think, moved to Southwest Florida is because of the weather, the beaches, the great community. And so I appreciate this opportunity to come and lead in prayer. And our church is having our Easter block party this weekend. We are located just off of Vanderbilt, everybody knows where Roller Scoop is. So if you want to have some ice cream and worship the Lord on Sunday, you had a great place to do that right off of Vanderbilt. And we have about 4,000 people sometimes come out to our block party, families, children, and everything is free. We have inflatable games, we have popcorn, cotton candy, and just a great outreach for families in Bonita Springs to spend some time out in this beautiful weather. I hope you'll join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, this morning we thank you for Bonita Springs, for where you have situated us at this time in our lives. Lord, we have gathered today to speak and to do business regarding this great city. This morning, the giver of wisdom, creator of knowledge, we pray that you would bless us today with that you would guide and direct our words, our action plans, our steps. Lord, yes, to make Bonita Springs an even better place to live, but more than that, in a way to bring you greater glory and honor that is due only your name. Lord, I pray for the council. I pray for those presenting today. I pray for the plans that are on everyone's minds, that they would reflect your glory and your greatness, and that we would look to you, the author and finisher of faith. We pray for blessings, not just on Bonita Springs. We pray for blessings on the state of Florida, on the United States of America, that we would seek your face and your glory. Bless us today in everything that is discussed and the steps that we take. For it's Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance on 3, 1, 2. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bogas.
Here.
Councilmember Purdon.
Here.
Councilmember Carr.
Here.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Here.
Councilmember Corey.
Here.
Councilmember Fullick. Here. Deputy Mayor Forbes.
Okay, we may postpone the agenda a little bit here.
We're all set this tonight.
We're all set.
We're all set. Oh, he's here. Okay, very good. Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please. Any comment? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Councilmember Purdon. Aye. Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick. Aye. Deputy Mayor Forbes.
Okay, welcome, folks. You people online and on the TV, you're more than welcome. I'm glad you saved the traffic out there. We're going to have a very productive meeting today, and I'm glad you're all here because this is our city, and we are the people that run this city. We are the people that run this country. So we must be involved. It's our duty to be involved. So thank you. Any public comment? Any public comment? There we go.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I'm just here to make a couple of comments. First thing is the approval of the...
Please state your name.
Oh, I apologize. I should know this by now. I'm Trish Leonard, a Bonita Springs resident, also a Bonita Springs owner and past president of the Downtown Alliance. I'm here to, on C, consent agenda C, 9C. I just wanted to say congratulations if we do get some more sheriff deputies, but I would like to see them enforce a little bit more on the off sides of like Ragsdale, Matheson. I walk a lot at night and even in the daytime, and look, watch what you wish for, because we were wishing for the downtown to be walkable. Okay, it's getting there. I thank you for that. But also they're coming, the big trucks and the cars are going a little faster. So I don't know if we could just put some signs up there, or, just to let people, remind people. Goodwin is another one where mamas walk their babies, and people are, and you can't see at night with a lot of the bicyclists, riding their bikes in the dark and all of that. So I just wanted to say that. And also I wanted to, on 10, the mayor and council items, am I allowed to say that? Talked about that one? Yeah, okay. I wanted to first thank Councilman Jesse Purdon for stepping up and to really, getting involved with the Wonder Gardens. Now, we all know how important the Wonder Gardens is to our community. And, we need some new direction, and I really want to say thank you, because we are going into negotiations, I do hope, and that, it is important to keep the gardens. And so I just wanted to personally thank you this morning for what you're doing, and also for the council that, will support this as well. And just want to say thank you, and for those who enjoy the holidays that are upcoming. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, if you have a problem with the sheriff's department, call the sheriff's department. They don't work for us. They're independent of the government. They work for you people. Okay, thank you. Okay, presentation. Mr. Corey, this is your item.
I'll introduce Ben Hirschison, who's the president of the Fairwinds Homeowners Association. They've done a lot of work for improving water quality within their storm retention ponds, and they'd like to share how they've done it and what people can think about in terms of perhaps fixing their own stormwater retention ponds in the community. So Ben, if you'll come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. And I want to also say to the staff and to the public who's here. I dressed up for today's occasion, so I'm not going to let it go to waste. So sit back and relax for the next hour and a half, because I'm ready to go. Anyway, I'll take a few minutes of introduction, and then I'll introduce our speaker. A few years ago, in my community, some people approached me about erosion in their backyards as it faced the lake. So, being the guy who wants to solve problems, I called a couple of companies that did revetment work. And when I got the information about the solutions, which would be man-made materials, kind of a gauze-like mesh material, and/or putting in riprap. Our community is small, 77 single-family homes. But when you get an estimate from two companies approaching 6 figures, you know this is not going to work. So I thanked them and I said, we got to find a better solution. With my own background in the plant sciences, I figured, what the heck? We know from the standpoint of erosion control, plants have always been used, trees, whatever, hillsides, roadsides, and very inexpensive method. So we decided, or I suggested to my board, that this might be a way to solve the erosion problem. The board did approve it unanimously, that idea, simply because of the fact it wasn't going to cost any money. And when I approach recommendations to the board, I'm always asking for money, but when you don't ask for money, it's a slam dunk. So we did accept that. So what we did was we created a no-bow zone for about 10 to 15 feet from the water's edge, and let Mother Nature do its thing. At the same time, because I keep going to the city council meetings and I do pick up information all the time as an academic and always learning, always wanting to teach. And one of the issues that we keep on hearing about clean water, clean water. Well, we were adding chemicals to our lake, maintaining it, keeping the algae down. So we decided to go full bore, stop adding chemicals to the lake, not having a zone of responsibility around the lake, which is about 15 feet from the water's edge, absolutely no fertilizer, along with the no mowing, no cutting. About simultaneously with that, one of my members who was at a board meeting, who since unfortunately passed away, had a friend of his. He said, Ben, he said, this sounds fascinating. He said, I got a friend of mine at FGCU, and he's in the water school, which is a great name. Anyway, I made contact with Dr. Douglas, and I told him what my ideas were, and he automatically saw this being a potential research project. So he's come to the community several times, and he said, this is really going to be an interesting sort of project. I will say this, after 2.5 years of no chemicals in the lake, not putting down any chemicals around, fertilizer on the lawns at the rear of the property, within 20 feet of the water's edge, we got some excellent results. And when you can do something that doesn't cost that much, essentially, other than some cutting back some of the plants that grow after a period of time, we're getting the results. And in order for us to really understand how successful this project has been at extremely low cost, this is time to introduce Dr. James Douglas, who is a professor of marine biology at FGCU. James?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the great introduction, Ben. I'm James Douglas, and I've got a little slideshow. I don't know if someone's going to load that up.
Right here for you. You can use the arrow keys over here or just use okay. Thank you.
Super duper. Right, so I really appreciated this opportunity from Ben and the Fairwinds community to do a scientific study for an important purpose, improving water quality in our community. And I'm just delighted now, 2 years later, that it's worked well and we've got some positive results to share with you. So this project is important because of a problem that we have in our community with water quality. Most of the surface waters in Bonita Springs are deemed impaired by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. For example, Estero Bay is impaired because of excess nutrients. Spring Creek has excess nutrients, excess iron, excess copper, fecal bacteria, not enough oxygen. The Imperial River has all those impairments and is also impaired because of excess algae. And Oak Creek, another important tributary in our area, is impaired for fecal bacteria. So across our beautiful community, we unfortunately have a serious water quality impairment problem. Why do we have this problem? I thought we had a solution in place because all around our community are these man-made ponds with two intended purposes. They're intended to help control flooding, and they're intended to help control pollution. But the observation that our surface water qualities remain impaired says that they're not quite doing that job they're supposed to do of controlling pollution. And I think one of the reasons that they're not fully doing the trick of controlling pollution is because they're overloaded with just too much pollution, and because of the way that they're managed often impairs their ability to remove pollution. My next 3 slides are going to show what I mean by being overloaded with pollution, what I mean by being poorly managed, and then what a well-managed pond like the Fairwinds Pond looks like. So this slide shows what we mean by overloading a pond with too much pollution. One type of overloading is if there's too much fertilizer use in the community around the pond, then fertilizer runs off the landscaping, it gets into the pond, and it makes algae grow in the pond, causing serious health problems for the pond. Another way that excess nutrients get into the pond is if there's just too much runoff going into the pond. If it's a small pond in a big neighborhood, it's a lot of dirty runoff that gets in there. And another way is if there's wastewater leaks in the area, if septic tank water is getting into the pond, or if the pond is at the receiving end of partially treated sewage, which is called reclaimed water, then there might just be too much nutrients going into the pond for that pond to deal with. The second way that a pond can start failing is if it's not managed well. These ponds are supposed to be surrounded by plant life to absorb the pollution, but a lot of times people don't get the message that they're supposed to do that, and they've got mowed lawns that go right up to the edge of the pond, and fertilizer and other lawn chemicals go straight into the pond. Also, some people worry about weeds around the pond, and they spray the weeds around the pond so that it's bare dirt around the pond, and then that bare dirt easily erodes. That's the problem that Dr. Hershenson was having at his pond. When a pond starts to develop problems like algae blooms, oftentimes the managers will put chemicals in there like pool chemicals to try to control the algae blooms, but that often leads to a cycle where the pond just gets worse and it gets higher and higher pollution levels in it. So this is a real kind of dysfunction that's unfortunately very common in our communities and is one of the reasons that our surface waters are so polluted. A well-managed pond looks very different. It looks much more like a natural wetland that you'd find out in the woods because they're supposed to have plants around them. They call them littoral plants. They're basically the plants that grow at the water's edge and in the shallow waters. And those are very important for not only holding the bank in place, which Dr. Hershenson mentioned, but also sucking pollution out of the water and keeping the water clean. An added benefit of having plants around the lake is that they're good for fish and wildlife. So you can see there's a little bird cartoon and a fish in the picture. So at Fairwinds, our goal was to go from one of these ponds that was suffering because of the way it was managed to a healthier pond. So Fairwinds is a beautiful community with an L-shaped pond, and we set up this study based on Ben's simple idea of having a zone of responsibility around the pond. No more mowing straight to the edge, no more spraying weed killer around the pond, no more fertilizing near the pond. So this is what the pond looked like before we started that. And this is a common scene around Bonita Springs. You see sort of bare dirt and brown dead plants around the pond. That's what it looks like when it's treated in the typical way with chemicals. So we thought, wow, we can do better than this. Let's stop this. This was what it looked like in fall 2021, about 2 years ago. And this is what it looks like now. The water is more clear in the pond, and instead of having bare dirt and dead plants around the pond, we have lush green plants around the pond. It looks a little more like a natural wetland like you might see in the Everglades. But we still have the normal community landscaping once you get above that pond edge zone. This is what the scientific data from that pond looks like. We did detailed plant surveys around the edge, and that top graph there, the bars are low, meaning that there's low amounts of plants around the pond. So before we did this, there was only about 25% plant cover around the pond. It was mostly bare dirt. And now we've got 75 to 100% plant cover around the pond. That's holding the bank in place, and it's controlling the runoff pollution. We did have to do some management in the second year because some of the plants got to be tall bushes, but it was pretty easy to just go in there and trim those. So we basically switched from spraying weed killer over everything to just a little bit of trimming with a weed whacker and pulling out some bushes that were growing. So it was very, very low maintenance, and we think because it's so low cost and low maintenance, it would be easy to do other places. We also looked at the water quality in the pond, and I don't expect you to be able to see every single line on these graphs, but the important message from Fairwinds Pond, which is the second cluster of graphs from the left in all of these graphs, is that over a year, its pollution levels went down by 50%. 50% less nitrogen in the pond, 50% less phosphorus in the pond, and 50% less algae in the pond. And that's all from our approach of simply leaving the pond alone to let nature take care of the nutrients. And we included other ponds in our comparison as a reference, including some healthy ponds on the campus of Florida Gulf Coast University and some other neighborhood ponds that were not managed as in such a green way. And so Fairwinds really outperformed those reference ponds. It even started doing better than the ponds that we have on the university campus, which was a little embarrassing for me. So what were the keys to our success? I think one thing was keeping it simple. We had a simple goal of increasing plant cover to 100% around the shoreline of the pond, and our simple method for that was to stop mowing and spraying around the edge of the pond. We also had to use patience. It took 2 years for the area to fully fill in, but it did. And it took a lot of communication. So Dr. Hershenson and I had to talk and make sure we were on the same page about the plan, making sure it aligned with the science. Ben had to talk with his HOA and make sure they understood what was going on, why they were seeing some different plants around the pond. He had to talk to the landscapers and the lake managers to make sure they got the message about not spraying around the pond or not mowing those plants that were starting to grow. And because of that communication, we were successful. And we also did this the scientific way. So Ben reached out to the FGCU Water School, which is a scientific organization, and we tried to give him the best scientific advice. We also followed recommendations from another group of scientists that has a community advisory website called wetplan.org, which is a local group of scientists that disseminate advice about pond management. And for the water quality sampling, we used another local resource, the Lee County Hyacinth Control District's Pond Watch program, which analyzed our water samples for us for free. And that's a service that the Hyacinth Control District makes available to any community that wants to get water samples from their pond tested. We also were adaptive. We anticipated that as our no-mow zone continued, we might have some problem solving to do to figure out what to do with those plants. And so we figured out, okay, about once a year, we're gonna need to go in there and trim them a bit. And we did that, and it worked. So to scale up this kind of success to success for the whole community, I think we could apply these same methods to just about any pond in the community. The same method should work anywhere. And ditches and some riverbanks can also have this same treatment. Not mowing or spraying near the edge should let the plants grow, and the plants control the pollution. If we did this at a larger scale, I would expect to see water quality improvements not only in the individual ponds, but also in the downstream waters that they flow into, ultimately Estero Bay and the Gulf of Mexico. So we encourage the city to make these practices the standard rather than the exception for ponds in the city, to help us sort of communicate this message of success and advocate for this sort of simple, no chemicals approach becoming the norm in our community. I'd like to thank the Fairwinds Homeowners Association for inviting us to do this little scientific experiment in their community. I'd like to thank the Hyacinth Control District's Pond Watch program for analyzing the samples, wetplan.org for their scientific advice in how to do this, my colleagues at the water school. I'm a marine biologist, so I had to ask my lake scientists a lot of advice about how to do this. And some of the monitoring work that we did around the pond and the weeding work was accomplished with the help of an Eagle Scout, Jack Boldrin, who did this for his Eagle Scout project. Also, I never would have known about this community if it weren't for my friend who lived there, Jay Newman, who passed away during the project. But we honor his memory. And that's all that I have.
Well, thank you, very good. Can I answer a question? Did you have to plant some of these plants around the lake, or did they come natural?
99% of those plants came naturally. So there were a few little seedlings here and there that had survived the weed killer, and when we stopped spraying weed killer, those things just kind of filled in. And we kept track of which species they were, and they're mostly native species with a few non-native weeds in the mix. We did try planting one kind of plant deliberately, and it lived and grew, but that was only about 1% of those plants was the ones that we planted. Most of that grew naturally.
How about the mosquito control? Is they spray for mosquitoes over your lake?
Let me defer that to Ben.
The only spraying that may be done would be from the air by Lee County. We don't do any spraying at all around that lake for 2.5 years now. So we're not applying any chemicals, whatever, to the lake.
Do you know if Lee County's spraying it or not?
Well, again, I think they spray sometimes during the summer, during heavy mosquito time, from the air. That's been pretty standard, I think, operation for many, many years. But from the standpoint of our community, no chemicals, 100% no chemicals for the last 2.5 years in that area.
You have fish?
Yes, we have fish.
One of the things that we're doing now is our next phase of this project is monitoring the animal life in the pond. So I've got my undergraduate students from Florida Gulf Coast University putting cameras in the pond and to look at the fish and see what's living in there. And so this pond has a lot of bass, bluegills, and red ear sunfish in it, and also some non-native tilapia. And so we're trying to see what all is going on in that pond, because we know that the plants and the animals interact together. So understanding the ecosystem requires thinking about the plants and the animals.
Very good, yes.
Dr.
Nigel?
Douglas, question for you. Reclaimed water, was that an issue with this pond? And do we have any idea how much reclaimed water we have going into our communities?
Ben's Pond does not receive reclaimed water, which is one of the reasons I think we were able to get it cleaned up so fast. A pond that was receiving reclaimed water, which is sort of like partially treated wastewater, is getting injected with a lot more nutrients and would have a little more trouble dealing with the nutrients. But a similar type of approach would probably be even more urgent in a pond that was full of the nutrient-rich reclaimed water.
And a question for Dr. Hershenson. Ben, you look great in a suit, you really do. My question to you, Ben, is any idea how much money you might have saved as an HOA by not having all these chemicals? And
That's a very good question. Looking at our community, I would say we're probably saving a couple of grand a year, which is, you know, not a lot. But again, this is only one lake. I know that, for example, Spanish Wells has 45 lakes. Bonita Bay, wouldn't want to hazard a guess. It's
80.
80, there you go. So that cost factor wouldn't even be that much. It's a good question. The cost factor would be a heck of a lot more and what's happening basically is we are saving the money, and this gives me another, again, I'm always thinking, and this gives me opportunity to ask my board, which they have approved. We give a small grant to Dr. Douglas and for the students. I mean, anybody who's been in graduate school or whatever, or a professor, I mean, they can make a dollar go further than anybody else. As a matter of fact, if they were running the country, but I don't want to digress to that point. I mean, you can really squeeze out value from a dollar. And so we give them a grant of $1,500 a year. That may be a little bit more in the future. But we're doing that to help the students to do the chemical analysis and so forth. So it has worked out as a great partnership. I never thought that this would work out as well as it has. And when you're doing a research project and your expectations are exceeded, you just sit back and say, wow, you know. And this was a lot of serendipity, at the same time, a lot of common sense.
thanks, Ben.
Yes.
I just want to say, we really appreciate the donations that Ben's community has made to the Florida Gulf Coast University Foundation. And so we use those for student scholarships, for the students that are going out and testing the pond. Instead of just asking them to do it for free, we give them a little bit of pay to compensate them for the time that it takes them to go out and survey the plants and test the water in the pond.
Yes, Laura?
Dr. Douglas, thank you for a great presentation. If you don't use chemicals, how do you kill the weeds?
Well, you don't.
But they take over the plants.
Well, this kind of pond shoreline area is really different from the formal landscaping of the rest of the community. So this is more like a preserve. So we can sort of think of the area around the edge of the pond the same way we think of a wilderness area, just a lot smaller. So, you know, out in the woods, you don't really have that concept of, is this a landscaping plant or a weed, because they're all just plants doing their thing. And that's kind of how we think about the edge of the pond. But to your point, you know, we do have some limits on these plants to keep them from going out of control. We've got that line where above that line, the lawn is still mowed. So these plants are not crawling into people's living rooms and strangling them in the night. So the mowing keeps them within that zone. And then on top of the mowing, there's trimming. So when the plants get really tall and start to block the view, we whack them down to about knee height. And that's a good compromise between what looks good and what keeps these environmental functions done. So basically, instead of killing everything down to the roots, we just trim it down to knee height, and that seems to accomplish keep the looks okay and also keep the environmental function. One other thing that Dr. Hershenson and I did was we came up with a list of plants that we're not going to allow in this zone. So anything that turns into a big bush or a tree is on our naughty list. And when we walk around the pond, if we see a little Brazilian pepper tree or something coming up, we pull it straight out.
What about a cypress tree?
A cypress tree, we haven't seen that yet, but we'll have to, we said that adaptation is one of our things. So if we see cypress trees coming up, we'll talk about that.
Okay, and when you say we whack it, that would be the community would take care of the growth in their ponds.
It's a combination of the landscapers contracted by the community and our student interns that survey the pond. So the student interns, when they go out there on a regular basis to see how the plants are doing, how the water quality is, there's certain plants that if they see, they'll pull them out because they know, well, we don't want to let any of the Brazilian peppers turn into big trees, that sort of thing.
And if the community has already put down riffraff, like moon rock, those riffraff, right?
So the community dodged that bullet.
But what if a community has? Is there a way to then still put plants? Because that's where is the filtering and the removal.
I think so. That's not something that I've tried before, but I'm a marine biologist, and so I can make an analogy to saltwater shorelines where it's very common to use a combination of plants and riprap for shoreline erosion control. So I think that a combination could work in these communities as well. Usually, the standard for where there's riprap now is they'll spray weed killer on the riprap, but they don't need to do that necessarily. You could have plants and rocks together controlling the erosion probably even better than just the plants by themselves.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thanks for listening. Thanks.
Okay. Consent agenda?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Purdon. Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Forbes. Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Okay, number 10A, I guess that's Jesse and the Wall, and Everglades Wonder Gardens. Can we,
You want me to Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know Councilmember Purdon would like to walk you through just a couple of the items we discussed, but at the direction of council, after the joint workshop that we had with the Wonder Gardens Board, staff with Councilmember Purdon and members of the Wonder Gardens and their executive director, Neil Anderson, who is here, had a series of meetings. Additionally, then, both the Wonder Gardens attorney and city attorney, Derek Rooney, have been reviewing some points of order that will be in a future agreement. But basically, I know today, Councilman Purdon will be looking for a confirmation vote on the terms that you see in the green sheet, which is the initial meat and potatoes of the future agreement. For clarification purposes, I'll also just note that there is a required ordinance because of the city's charter that requires any value over $15,000 to be conducted in the approval of an ordinance. So it would require the second reading, which will be duly advertised by the clerk for your April 3rd meeting at 5:30 p.m. So if there is a confirmation vote on these terms, the agreement will come back to you, and the second reading of the ordinance, which would complete the process of the operator's agreement.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate, first of all, I want to say thank you to Neil and the Wonder Gardens, because this honestly has been a long time coming for both the city and the Wonder Gardens, and I think we're all happy to kind of get this to a place where we're about to tie a ribbon on it, but we don't want to celebrate until we're at second reading, but I feel pretty confident that we're on the right direction. Just for everybody's edification, if you're listening online, as Arlene alluded to, you're going to see this twice. That isn't because there's any type of problem. You're going to see it twice because statutorily we have to do it because of the amount of money involved. So first reading is going to be today. Second reading will be our next meeting. And then this will be over. Top line items for everybody who's listening who doesn't have this in front of them. Number one, confirmation investing of all animals, non-affixed personal and intellectual property with the operator. An annual contribution, i.e. the rent for $50,000 a year for capital improvements or improvements by the Wonder Gardens equivalent to the amount based on the city's current faculty deficiency plan. An initial 10-year term with an ability to renew. So they will have an ability in 10 years to renew, but the reason it isn't going to be the same contract continuation is because 10 years from now, hypothetically, there's an animal hospital there. Hypothetically, there's raised sidewalks. So any of those things that we've seen in their planning, those might be things that a council 10 years from now may want to put in the new contract. So the only reason that we have that in there is so when and if we decide we want to add things to it 10 years from now, we have the ability to. And then, and also, if they give us, the $3 million over the 10 years and they're good and faithful and rent and things are moving in the appropriate direction that I'm confident they will, maybe we renegotiate, the financial terms as well. So this just gives us that opportunity. So we're not carrying on the old contract in 10 years. And then capital improvement contributions, no less than $3 million by the Wonder Gardens over the initial term of 10 years. That's new money for the city. So there was a lot of people who were upset, it's been a long time, we had all this money that's owed, and, they were not only willing to come to the table for the rent scenario, but also now this is over the 10-year duration, another $3 million that will go towards all of the improvements that we're going to need to make over, excuse me, the improvements that we're going to need to make over there. And then confirmation that naming rights, certain subleases and improvements requiring the city approval, as we discussed, provisions for insurance as well as addressing procurement and public records as required, and the option to repurchase was taken out. So it'll be ours. With that said, that's more than the concessions that I think that most people thought we were going to get, and I'm pretty happy with the deal. I'm ready to take any questions anybody might have, and we can go.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I have $300,000 a year is quite a bit of money. Where's that come from?
The 300
Donations and
No, okay, so that is, that's $3 million over 10 years.
that's $300,000 a year.
Right, so it doesn't have to be in the first year necessarily. We're not gonna wait till the 9th year for all of it.
Okay,
But as
that's-
projects, as they knock them out, they'll be able to, appropriately financially plan. But we also, in the contract, have the financial side of it. We had issues before, but we've made it so now they're gonna be giving us financials, is it monthly initially, then moving to quarterly?
We moved to quarterly.
Or quarterly, okay, so quarterly, they're gonna be giving us all the financials that we could possibly need. So 4 times a year, we're gonna see everything. And then, we'll never be in a situation like we found ourselves in before, where we're way down the road before we realize there's a problem. So built into the contract, that's there to make sure we never get in a spot like that.
Okay, and another question is, how do we break this contract if they don't perform?
There's a clause, we have a clause in there that allows for either party, if we're not living up to our side of it, to end the contract. So essentially, if they.
That's where we were. with
Right,
this
so
other one.
we have it set up now so that can't happen again. So essentially, if they decided to not pay say they didn't pay the rent, or meet some other financial obligation, insurance, whatever it is, we can call the contract, and then they would either fix it or we would figure out, how we would move forward.
Mr. Mayor, I think it might be more helpful to direct questions regarding what the contract will actually say to me, and then the rationale for why we agreed to those terms to Councilman Pert.
Okay, Derek, how much, it's $50,000, that's gonna probably go into, that rent would probably go into improvements.
So let me preface the the starting point for the negotiations, there were two primary issues that the council was concerned about: oversight, and then the current facility deficiencies, because we have our deficiency report shows that there's almost $2 million in deficiencies that need to be addressed. And so the oversight issues have all been addressed and all been agreed to. That's the financial reporting, that's if there's public records, if there's anything like that, all that stuff will be done, as well as making sure that they come to the council for some of the listed items like naming rights. For what Councilman Purdon classified as rent portion is, the city has identified about $400,000 right off the bat of what we call priority one repairs and deficiencies that need to be addressed. And so what we've done in the agreement is we've identified that both the city and the Bonita Wonder Gardens have an interest in reinvesting in the property. And so what this does is a 10-year agreement whereby they're going to reinvest, according to the plan that they've already showed you and their fundraising goals, $3 million into new permanent facilities at the Wonder Gardens. That will help to recoup the city's initial investment in the mortgage to secure the property originally. And then the $50,000 a year will be paid to the city to address those priority one deficiencies, because the city will have to go in and make those improvements itself, and those are the critical life safety improvements. Now, what we've provided for is, as they move forward and do their own projects, or for instance, one is the pole barn. There's a lot of money tied up in the pole barn. Well, if those priority one improvements are only required if you're going to keep the pole barn and rehab it. If they take it out, it's gone. And so what I provided for in the agreement, which you'll see soon, is that for any work that they do that is work that the city would have to do, we will give them a set-off against future rents. So if they're owed $50,000 a year and they do $20,000 of improvements to address, say, an ADA issue in a bathroom, those improvements will be set off against the remaining balance for that year. And so it's just an incentive program. We want to make sure that all these things get done. The city is prepared to go in and do them, and there'll be a required contribution annually from you to repay us for doing it, or you can go in and do it. And so that's the way the agreement's been set up. And there could be overlap. That $3 million, they could go in, tear down building and rebuild it. The tearing down and rebuilding the building would come back to you for approval, but that could address a whole bunch of deficiencies and go towards the $3 million capital improvement. So I think the agreement is well laid out. We're just working out some of the details now, but that's what Councilman Purdon's looking for your blessing on.
Very good, yes.
I just have a question. I think it's just a typo, Derek. There's no statement missing on number 5. It's basically confirmation that naming rights, certain sublease improvements require city approval. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then last, if you haven't met Wendy yet, she's the new chair. It's having a new executive director and a new chair. It's just been refreshing because, I mean, as Laura, you used to work with the Wonder Gardens. Chris, you've worked with the Wonder Garden. We've all had, we've had a long history over there. But I'm telling you guys, it's new blood, and I feel like with that new energy for a great relationship, and I feel positive about it. I really do. So.
Very good. Yes, Chris.
When I started working with the Wonder Gardens when I first got on council, and it was sort of a disappointing process. But what I've always wanted to see is a public-private partnership on this. I mean, certainly the city does not want to operate the Wonder Gardens. We don't have the skill set, we don't have the people to do it. And so we need the Wonder Garden board and the employees of the Wonder Garden to make it work. What I like out of this whole thing is it's really an asset for Bonita Springs. It's an asset that's going to be improved. It's going to be continually improved for the residents of Bonita Springs and the visitors and tourists that come here. And it provides a long-term plan for the Wonder Gardens that we know will continue to exist and thrive with the help of both the Wonder Garden Board and the city over the next generation. So, you know, I want to thank Jesse for all of his work on this. I want to thank the Wonder Garden Boards for everything that they've done to help make this agreement come to pass. And I'm fully supportive of what's been laid out as the elements of a term sheet, and look forward to seeing the final contract.
We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any more comments? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick. Deputy Mayor Forbes.
Aye.
Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Councilmember Purden.
Mayor, just one point of clarification too. I know that Councilmember Purdon discussed the quarterly as a professional courtesy and in regards to full transparency. Neil and myself and Nicole will be working on a general monthly report, just very similar to the other lease agreements you have, where you'll get an update on memberships, an update on attendance and events that are offered, and we're hopeful to continue. That information would be helpful for us to push out once the contract's agreed, as far as our communications department will be able to work with them on all that as well. And we'll also be working with Neil on a presentation to council here shortly on their upcoming capital improvements plan, and looking for some approvals on on items so they can begin their fundraising process.
Okay, Mike, can I read the next 11A?
This is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs authorizing the lease of real property known as the Everglades Wonder Gardens and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Forbes. Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Councilmember Purden. Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Okay, well, moving along here. 12A, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This time, I'd like Lisa to come forward to go and review the January financial report, and she's also going to cover item 12B as well, the approval of the annual update to employee salary ranges.
All right.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Today,
All
we're
right,
going,
Neil.
I'm sorry, sir? Nice. I didn't want to stay and hear the exciting financial news we've got.
Yeah.
So this is our January financial report. Our fiscal year starts October, so we're a little short of 50% of the way through. Most of the data that we show you is historical in nature. That's just the way it works. We collect it, account for it, and then we can present it to you all. Florida economic data releases. The state, and as I've mentioned before, the state economists do just a really great job in giving us both historic data, so then they can utilize that with all the other economic influences and make some projections for us, which really reflect what happens with our local revenues. And also, you'll see a lot of times it mirrors what we're seeing here locally, and it helps to bring it all together. This is not, you know, like if we have an area which is declining somewhat in activity, if we can see it's a statewide trend, you know, it helps to put it in line with what's going on. So the two reports that we're going to talk about today are the Florida Economic Estimating Conference and an Economic Overview Report. Again, two reports that came out of the state. They're saying that future growth rates have indicated mixed results. Some of the areas are coming in higher and some are lower, which is kind of unique because mostly when you see certain things being positive, you won't necessarily be something contrast with a not so rosy of an outlook. But here we have weaker growth rates across housing sectors. Now, again, this is something that they're seeing statewide and we're seeing here. Each month when we show y'all our financial reports, some of our new home starts have taken, in recent months, have taken a downturn. So again, they're seeing this statewide. So higher growth rates across economic sectors. We've talked about, and the state as a whole talks about the state of Florida having a labor market shortage. We'll talk about a couple reasons why that happens later. But it is a statewide thing, and we're feeling it here in Southwest Florida too. The new job rate is growing much higher than the labor market data can support. So you have too many jobs, too few people in our labor market right now. The state is working on that, but it is a statewide trend that we're seeing. Florida gross domestic product. This may be a little bit difficult to see, so I ask for your patience. I think you have a handout, but what it shows is the latest data of where we've been. So this is what they've presented, the latest historical data. The darker areas, and this is growth in gross domestic product, the darker areas are the higher growth rates. As y'all can see, our state is in the higher growth percentile from a gross domestic product, which is a great thing, and that was last year. Now let's see what they're going to talk about, where they think we're headed in the next few years. And they usually make these projections for about 5 years, sometimes 10. I think this one's about 5. So this are the projections where we're headed. The first bullet, we're going to start out, Florida's economy, we expanded 4.4% in the fiscal year we just ended. Great growth rate. Well, then they're saying that they think that growth rate itself is going to decline to about 2.8 this fiscal year we're in now, and about a little further decline to about 1.1 for the next fiscal year. Thereafter, they think the economy is going to grow at about 2%, and that's a healthy rate. I mean, I know we see these big numbers, 4.4%, but we all know our economy can be quite, for lack of a better term, hot or get heated up at certain points, and it's got to come down a little bit. But they think a 2% growth rate on a regular basis is pretty healthy for our state as a whole. This shows what we just talked about pictorially. So what you have here is the horizontal blue line. Everything leading up to that is historic data. Everything after that are the projections that they think we may be having. As we know, projections are never exactly precise, but hopefully they give us a general range of where we're headed. The 3 different bars there are actually different points in time when they make projections. Just like we do with our capital improvement project, we actually, each year we look at those projects. Are they still in line, timing-wise? Do we need to make any budget adjustments? So they do the same thing here. So the red line is the most recent one that they just did, December 23, and you can see that one's actually getting a little better. But they're both very close. So they're saying the growth, but just the growth won't be as marked of an increase in the future. Near-term future is what they're projecting. Florida personal income. Again, this is where we've been, and this is their latest historical data that we're going to present to you all. And personal income in the state of Florida is a big economic driver. Again, sorry, it's a little small, but we want to show you the whole nation. We are in the 3rd percentile, we as a state, about 3.5%, and we're actually on the high end of that. So we're probably about middle range when you compare us to all the different states. Very good data to see. Again, it's good not to be near the bottom, too close to the bottom. So our Florida and excuse me, that's supposed to say capita personal income. Our personal growth rate in the last year that just ended was 7.9%. That's significant. But let's see where they think we're going to go over the next 5 years. They actually think growth this year that we're in is only going to fall to 6.3, and the very next year, about the same at 6.4. Again, this is personal income growth in the state of Florida. This affects a lot of things. And then thereafter, 4.7. That's still a pretty significant growth when you compare it to what we thought the gross domestic product was going to be. This is indicative of a few things that are going on in the state of Florida. Our labor market shortage that we think is happening and will continue to happen, and that kind of drives this up. Pictorially, here we are again. We're going to see everything leading up to the blue vertical line will be historical. On the other side of it will be projections. The red line is the most recent projection, and it's gotten a little better from the other ones. One thing to keep in mind, when you're going out really far, you try not to be too assertive or aggressive with your projections, because there's nothing worse than falling short of some revenue projections. But anyway, this is a healthy growth. So while you see those growth rates are good, this is what it really affects and what it really comes down to, Florida wages. Florida had a 5.6% increase in the number of jobs in this last year. At the same time, Florida had an 11.8% increase in total wages. That's just indicative of what we've been talking about. There's too few people for the number of jobs that are being added to the market in the state of Florida. Now, the state's aware of this. They're tracking it. We've been talking about, they've been tracking these labor numbers for a long time, so they're hoping to do something to help with this. It is a longer-term problem, though. Projections include continued annual wage growth, and it's going to grow greater, the greater than projected inflation in all the years is driving that as well. The inflationary numbers will follow a lot of times the wage numbers, hopefully. The bottom line there is something that they stressed at in both of these reports and both of these presentations that they make of these reports. Florida's higher wages are likely here to stay, at least in the near-term projections for 5 years. Now, we've already talked about that looking at our budget for next year, so we think we're probably going to have to ask to make sure we're in line so that we retain and recruit our people, retain our people and recruit new people if we need to. So this is very important, or else we're not going to be able to compete with the other employers in the area. This gives it pictorially again, Florida wages and salaries. Now, these are all industries. Again, the vertical line historically, and then the other side of it are the projections. As you can see, they're still projecting it to continue to go up. And we are monitoring that, we as a state, so hopefully that will make a turn. And another strong reason for our labor shortage, these are our unemployment rates. As you can see, Florida's unemployment rate, I apologize, that's a little hard to see, Florida's unemployment rate is better than the U.S. 3.7 United States, 3% in Florida. Again, indicative of our very tight labor market. This is a neat slide. You know, I always have to have one that's exciting, extremely exciting or neat. This is Florida's labor force participation rate. This is saying how many people that are residents of the state of Florida that participate in the labor market. Again, we've been talking about how that's going down. More of our population as a state are retirees because of the baby boomers, and we're happy that they can retire, but it is creating the labor, it's exaggerating and participating in the continued labor market shortage that we have in our state. So this is what we're seeing here. As y'all can see, it's going down. Our population, we will talk about that all the time, it is going up. But then the people in our population that are participating in the labor market out there looking for a job and that need to work, and again, nothing against the retirees, we all hope to be there one day, but we do need our labor market force to increase, and hopefully we can see that happening. A couple of other slides that I really wanted to show you all that bear on our economic news, and that's what we're talking about today. These are Florida total private home starts. Again, after the vertical line, you can see what they're projecting. They're not really projecting in the near-term future significant growth in housing starts, which was what we've been talking about with our community development department, and again, that's what we're seeing here in Bonita. Something that's a positive note about the real estate market as a whole, though, I wanted to show you this, Florida's existing single-family homes sold. You can see after that vertical line, they're actually projecting that to go up. They talked about different reasons why that's happening and why they think that that's going to continue to be a healthy area of our real estate economy, which is a good thing. It has to do with supply and demand. We are getting, some of our areas are getting closer to build out, us here particularly. So, but the people are still moving in, people still want our homes, so that's helping with the pricing of the homes somewhat. Of course, I'm not an expert in that area, and I'm not trying to say that I am, just giving some data for y'all. Florida total visitors. I thought this was a very interesting slide because they have stated repeatedly that it's taken us, after COVID, that 2020 drop there, that's COVID. So, but what they're saying is it's taken us about 2 years after COVID to get back to some of the levels. Sometimes, I think it was domestic tourism here in Florida, 2 years. I think it was 3 years for Canada and longer for international. And international still hasn't gotten back to where it was. But they're tracking it and they're doing all that they can to make that turnaround. Now, this next slide shows us why that's so important. Sales tax collections by source. And again, this is a historical data, but the percentages are pretty consistent. So tourism, you can see there, it's 13.9% of our sales tax. They bring in a lot of dollars, so that's why we track that, and that's why we hope to, encourage them to come. Florida's population growth to slow. Again, when we talk about the economy as a whole, we are a very populous state, and our population slight changes can significantly impact how our revenues, our projections, all of our things economically we can do behave. They made a statement that Florida's future, population's future will be different than the past. We have been a big growth state from a population standpoint, and in the near term, they're not projecting that growth rate to continue. I think that's sort of similar in my mind to the gross domestic product in that sometimes it gets red hot and it grows a lot, but then hopefully it comes back to a normal growth rate that is still a positive growth rate and healthy, but maybe a little more long-term sustainable. The next bullet point, Florida's long-term growth rate, here's between 1970 and 1995, this is showing you where we've been, was over 3% per year. The next bullet point tells you where they think we're going to go. They think from 2023 to 2030, it's only going to be 1.25% per year. Again, it's a healthy rate, it's a growth rate. It's not a negative, and believe it or not, some of these states have negative numbers all over the place. So we are still growing, we're just not going to grow as quickly as we did. I promised this slide from the last time. Ad valorem estimating revenue conference, that is our real estate taxes. The state takes a look at that. They do that primarily for the schools, and they do it on a county basis, so not a local level for us, not a municipality level, but it gives us a good indicator of maybe where we may be going. They're saying the real estate values, depreciation is expected to drop to a low single-digit number in all the forecasted years. Again, that's just statewide, countywide, specifically for us. But not necessarily what we'll see here. We get our first numbers, I'll talk about at the end, June 1st, so we'll know. And we're a little different with respect to the impact we've had of Ian. So our numbers we think are going to move a little differently in the state, hopefully a little more positive. But the middle bullet, tightening monetary policy and the elevated mortgage rates, they're introducing a dampening effect on the prices. And even some of the prices are having to decrease in order to move the homes. This is not unique to our area. It's nationwide, but it will impact us, so we do like to make note of it. Okay, we get to our Bonita numbers. This is our general fund revenue, again, as of January 31st, a little less than halfway through the year. This is the consistency by source. So you see the biggest source there is ad valorem taxes. We've talked about, we get those in the first part of the year. So as we move forward through our year, because we've collected almost all of our ad valorem taxes because people want the discount, so they all pay by November. So the pie is going to change. The ad valorem will be reduced as our other regular monthly revenues that we receive grow as we move through the year. Because we do get some things monthly, some things quarterly, but primarily monthly. General fund revenue, we love to do fiscal year to date and compare it to the immediate prior fiscal year to date to see, our projections, in line with what we thought. Are we where we need to be from a budgetary standpoint? Because we budget these revenue numbers, and that's what you're seeing. So you can see we've had healthy trend growths in most of the areas. A good thing to have. Because this slide, our general fund regular recurring operating expenses, because of all the inflationary impacts that we've had, again, not just for Bonita, nationwide and the state of Florida, our inflation has not come down as much as some of the other areas in the nation. We hope that that changes, and we'll watch for that to change, but we are prepared for that, and you will see those in our budget coming up. So this does fiscal year to date right now where we are as compared to the immediately prior fiscal year to date. And you can see most of these categories have moved up, and that's an indication of inflationary impact. restricted revenues. These are revenues that we collect that are restricted for specific areas of operation. The first one, building permit fees. We started out the year building permit fees, and those are new construction starts. They could be residential, they could be commercial, they could be industrial. So we started out the year, compared to last year, it was significantly lower. As we can see, it has moved past last year. We know we heard the state data. Do we think this is going to continue at that level? Maybe not. We might not budget for that, but we've had a robust couple months, and it's something to take as a positive away. Again, cautionary that we don't see that kind of activity going forward. Stormwater management, we have the impact fees. Again, when you see we've got park impact fees there, road impact fees. When you see the building permit fees take a little jump, the road impact fees particularly, and somewhat the park impact fees will take a jump too, again, because those are on new construction. Everyone has roads, not everyone has parks. Certain types of use do not pay for parks, commercial and industrial and things of that nature. But state revenue sharing or other thing, or fuel taxes. Our fuel taxes are a little lower than last year. When you hear about gas prices going up, consumption typically goes down. We show our cash balances for 3 fiscal years, and it's a snapshot in time. It's January 31st, current year, and the immediate 2 years preceding. This gives us an idea of our accumulation of funds to fund our capital projects, because we talk about we really like to try to fund our capital projects as we go. In order to do that, we have to accumulate the money designated through our capital improvement plan, and as we bring those projects forward to construction, this money will be utilized for that. And the second slide is just, again, these are more restricted revenues that we use for certain types of projects. And I think that's it. And I hope y'all take my patience. They had so much exciting data
Yeah, yay!
that I had to give to y'all. I couldn't whittle it
Good.
down to just a few.
Good. Thank you. Any questions here?
Thank you.
You're home.
You want to cover the next item, which is the
Yes. So the next item that we have before you is an annual update to our employee salary ranges. What we attempt to do is these are our ranges now. So that means not necessarily that's where our employees fall inside of a range. We try to move these up each year. We've recommended to you on the past, and council has approved, and this is the last few years we've been doing it. Each year we take the consumer price index that's in the charter that's actually tied to wages for our region. We utilize that and we move the ranges up. This helps us in numerous ways from an employee standpoint. It helps us recruit, retain employees, because if they have a range that's actually indicative of the consumer price index and moving it up, then they can function with that range. We can retain them and we can recruit them, and retain them. And also, we have a lot of long-standing employees. We love to say we have a lot of employees that have been here for a long time. This helps them make sure that they don't, artificially grow outside of the range, that we can keep them engaged and retain them. So, did you want to cover anything else on that, Arlene? Or did that cover it all? Good.
But we would need a motion. to
Yes,
confirm.
yes.
So moved.
Second.
Great.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Councilmember Fullick.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Forbes.
Aye.
Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Councilmember Purdon. Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye. Very good. Okay, acceptance of leave recovery, that's.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. At this time, as you know, Councilmember Corey has been participating since December of 2022, as a gentle reminder, in the Resiliency Task Force representing the city. Yesterday, I have confirmed that Lee County Board of County Commissioners approved and accepted the Resilient Lee Recovery and Resilience Plan. It covers over 46 initiatives, but will act as the blueprint for future grant opportunities, as well as the blueprint for the HUD money that Lee County has received. And that process is started. I also understand that our liaison was appointed yesterday as well, received a confirmation email, which was forwarded to all of you yesterday evening as well from Lee County staff. I believe their first meeting is this coming Tuesday for an initiation as well. Tuesday, March 26th would be their first meeting, and we'll be coordinating with Mike Gibson, your liaison to that committee. But at this time, we'd be looking for a confirmation vote on this plan as an acceptance so that we can provide a letter from the mayor to Lee County Board of County Commissioners that you have accepted the plan.
Move to accept.
Second.
Discussion? I
Any
just
other
have a couple
comments?
questions.
Yes.
Okay.
You're in a second, right?
No, Fred
Yeah,
was.
Fred.
Fred was.
Okay.
So this is a great pathway, but it's sort of like the kitchen sink. And we will control the projects that we pick, correct?
Correct. Any project that we submit would come before City Council first. The initial project you authorized staff to work on for planning was an update to the mobility plan, the bicycle pedestrian pathway, and an update to the Parks Master Plan. So those are the two initiatives that have been, that's the first calling for grant opportunities. The next will be specific infrastructure projects, and we'll be working with our staff to bring some selections and suggestions. If there's anything else at that point that council wanted to add to that, we can. But every project that we submit will come before the city council first.
And every project you'll seek funding.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then our water, is there a way to encourage developers to use plants that are helpful? And just like Ben and Dr. Douglas's presentation, that we sort of encourage the planting of plants along our banks?
So I think that's something we could talk to community development about in regards to where that fits into their review of LDOs and such, but I also need some input from Derek on what you can require and what can be encouraged, within that language, so.
Well, let's think about.
Bring
what we wanna
it
do,
back,
and
bring
then
it
figure out
back.
Where to put it.
Yep.
Bring it back next time. We'll discuss it then. Okay?
And again, I just want to thank our staff, many of whom worked around the clock. We're right on top of it. We're proactive and removing debris from roadwalks and roadways. So it really, the staff here was amazing, absolutely amazing. So thank you all.
Okay, update?
Oh, no, we do need a vote on that item, the acceptance of the Resilient Lee Recovery.
Okay, we had a
First and a second.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Fullick.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Forbes.
Aye.
Councilmember Bogas.
Aye.
Councilmember Purton. Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilmember Corey.
Aye.
Okay, now, update on hurricane?
Yes, I did want to let you know, as I did state, we will be having a series of meetings that our staff will be participating still. We have the applications coming forward as well for infrastructure. The only other update I want to provide is we did receive notification yesterday that was voted on by Lee County Commissioners. They will be increasing the rate of Lee-Tran, which is the Bonita Springs route as well, to $3 a ride as well. It used to be for the Uber, the type plan. And then that will be starting that process now, as well as the upcoming workshop, which I'll let Matt talk about for FDOT regarding, will be regarding the intersection of Bonita Beach Road and US 41.
So that's the public hearing, which is the second part of the PD&E process, the second kind of very public part. For the US 41 Beach Road intersection, it's on March 26th at the Bonita Springs Rec Center at 5, I think it starts at 5:30 in the evening. And what it will be is FDOT showing which of the two alternatives they presented back in April of last year, which of the two alternatives they are going to move forward with at the intersection. As you may recall, neither alternative shown a year ago included an overpass. So, it was, I think from the city's perspective, you couldn't really go wrong with either option that they showed. But they will be kind of seeking feedback, but also informing the public which one they are gonna move forward with.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
On that, I remember one of them was continuous intersection, I think is what it was called. What was the other one? And if you could just give a brief explanation for the people listening who might not understand what that is.
Well, the simplest, one of the options is a continuous flow intersection that would have been applied to US 41 north and south. It is, what happens is you have a signalization before the main intersection. So in this case, the main intersection would be US 41 and Beach Road. You have a signal that is installed ahead of that that collects left-hand turns and then shunts them across the roadway essentially to another series of left-hand turn lanes that are on the opposite side of the lanes you would make the left across it. And so what that allows is two things, really. It's kind of double the turn lane capacity, but the ones that cross the main line, which in this case would be 41, the ones that get across there and are queued up are then allowed to make a left-hand turn while the north or southbound movement of US 41 is happening. So it allows for more volume of left-hand turning movements to happen in the intersection, which you may recall is one of the kind of the key hang-ups in that intersection is the amount of people making certain left-hand turn movements. In addition, both options, and I'll talk about the other one in a second, included new roadway connections. So they essentially incorporated the city's quadrant road, which by the time their improvements are built will be already constructed, which runs behind the public shopping center. So that allows you another kind of left-hand turn option if you're coming off the beach so that you're not in the main intersection. But additionally, FDOT will be constructing in either option a roadway that would mirror that on the eastern side, which would go into Arroyo Road. So it would come across the FDOT pond and connect there. Both options included that component, the roadway the city will build and kind of replumbing it a little bit, and then this new roadway. The real primary difference between the continuous flow intersection that was shown and the other option was to 8-lane US 41. So instead of having these left-hand turns that kind of drop over, they were just going to widen US 41 to an 8-lane cross section as you approach the Beach Road intersection. That creates kind of more of a distance and safety issues, but I think they'll explain in their presentation on March 26th which one they are going to go with.
Very good. That's a pretty good.
And where was that again? I'm sorry.
Who?
Where is the meeting?
The rec center.
Okay.
If you wanted to see, for the public, if you wanted to see a continuous flow intersection, there is one at the intersection of Daniels and State Road 82 out in Lehigh Acres Gateway area.
Daniels and State Road 82.
Okay.
Do you think the presenters will let the public know that too?
I
think
don't
they
know.
should.
I don't know.
Do we have an idea, and this is, I'm just asking from staff's perspective, do they already probably know what they're gonna do, or is this kind of that they really wanna hear what everybody's gonna say, and at the end, they're gonna make a decision?
They wanted to hear what everyone was going to say in April of last year.
Okay.
This is really kind of
Got
the
it.
results show, so to speak. I don't want to, mischaracterize it. It is a public hearing, but you're no longer going to see two options. They will say, we've heard your feedback, we've refined the concept. They still have to design it, but once this is kind of the conclusion of this part of the federal process, and it allows them to then move to the actual thing we're all interested in, which is results, right? So they'll be able to spend those federal dollars, design it, and start to actually build this.
What is the financial impact on the city on this? Do you know? Any idea?
I don't know off the top of my head. The quadrant road that they do incorporate is a $12 million commitment from the city currently in our capital improvement plan. We've also committed about $700,000 for design services to make sure that FDOT moves on with the design, but beyond that, I don't know. I think the city's probably donated quite a bit at this point.
Very good. Move along.
That concludes my report, thank you.
Okay, well, gee whiz. Okay, Mayor and the council members report. How about Laura? You want to start us out today?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see. London Bay's Ritz-Carlton residences on Estero Bay have sold out of Tower 1 and have started the construction of Tower 2, so that's very exciting. Actually, they've already sold 10 units. We got the grants for Rosemary, stormwater drainage and the pedestrian safety measures, as well as the grant for Goodwin. And so I want to thank staff for all their work, Ellie for her attention to detail on the grants, and of course, President Kathleen Pasadoma, Senator John Martin, and Representative Adam Botana for pushing this through. Goodwill opened a new store in Bonita, and it's completely renovated and newly painted, organized like it's a real department store up by the elections office, in that where Figs is and Riverside Terminology. A new spa opened, and the new owners of Moonwolf and Bohemian both welcomed new children. So Claire and Giovanni welcomed a son, San Antonio, and then Caitlin and Brandon from the Bohemian welcomed a little girl, Maxine. So it's exciting.
Okay, Deputy Mayor,
Yeah,
your comments for today?
yeah, number one, we had a nice luncheon yesterday hosted by Senator Pasadoma, the current president of the state senate, and she made a very interesting talk about different things that they had done and achieved in this session. Some of us were able to contact her directly. I was lucky enough to do that, and I thanked her again and again for, I called it sprinkling, to get us some money. And I said, we really appreciate that. And let me say, had it not been for the work of 5 people from this council, we went up there to legislative action days, we would have done terrible in this thing. So if going up there really paid off, and it was the work of the 5 people, you know, and so I think that needs to be pointed out again. I think that's it.
Okay, Nigel? your
Yes, sir.
comment?
3 things. Number 1, I want to thank Councilman Corey, because if the public doesn't see it, this is the condensed version of the work that they've done over the last few months, and Chris has been incredibly diligent, so thanks for working on our behalf, Chris. Memorial Day is coming up, and I got to share this with some of my fellow council folks last night. Delighted. This is our 25th anniversary as a city, and Memorial Day, we're turning it into what it should be, a tribute to those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. Our speaker on Memorial Day will be Lieutenant General Bob Elder. That's a 3-star general. He actually was the general who started the Air Force Space Command. He is very well respected in the military community, but he's coming down here to be our guest speaker for Memorial Day. And he is, if you're military, he's a Bronze Star winner. Has 4,000 plus hours, 89 hours, combat hours, great speaker, and he's also my high school and college classmate, so that's how we got him here. But I think we're gonna be honored to have someone of that caliber for our 25th anniversary.
Sounds good, very good. Okay, Jamie?
I don't have a whole lot. The fire department has hired 3 new firefighters. It started this past Monday. They have 3 weeks of orientation. And then they're also hoping that they have a purchase agreement on the property that is owned on Hickory Boulevard forthcoming in April.
Oh, very good. Jesse?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Benjamin, you're still here? Benjamin, great job. Dr. Douglas and Jack Bollerin, the Eagle Scout, who did the work there. I just wanted to say, good job. The city appreciates it. It's awesome to see that type of participation from the community. So thank you for that. And the staff salary stuff, I'm glad that we did that because honestly, we have excellent staff. I always lovingly refer to the city on all my social media posts as the greatest city in America, but that doesn't happen on its own. We have great department heads, we have great staff throughout, so to be able to keep and retain them and be the type of city we need to be, I think it was absolutely necessary, and I'm glad that we did do that. I wanted to also recognize the increase we gave to LCSO because that helps us to catch up in relation to our population growth. So really, we made the city safer this morning. So it just needed to be noted. And then last on the Wonder Gardens, this new agreement's a huge step forward. And I think that this is a relationship that needed mending for a very long time. And I think that they have new leadership. We have a good deal for the taxpayers and the Wonder Gardens. So I really appreciate the ability to hopefully get this over the finish line at our next meeting. I'll say this is the most positive. If you recall, I'm the person who pulled the contract about a year and a half ago, and I've been vocally a critic of the old deal. So I will say that this is the most bullish I've felt on our relationship with the Wonder Gardens in a long time. So, I'm thinking this next 10 years with the Wonder Gardens is going to be a great 10 years. So that's all I've got.
Chris?
There's an important MPO meeting this Friday. On the agenda is the Rails to Trails project, and I know that Fred and Laura will be there. I will be there as well to push for the MPO to move forward with the studies necessary to complete this. We've got just 2 years to come up with the purchase price of $82 million, and this is an important step to get the MPO moving on this with respect to what they need to do, and hopefully we can soon meet with the county commission to work out ideas on how we can fund that purchase price. So keep attuned to further developments, but I think if there's one thing that's important to Bonita Springs, it's the development of what has become more or less an abandoned and weed-infested and tree-infested railroad right-of-way, and to make it a beautiful linear park that all of our residents can use.
Okay, I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department, doing an excellent job, excellent job. I happened to talk to Captain Lee a couple days ago about a person on the beach that has lots of people trespassing on her property, and she's an elderly person, and she's scared with all these people. And Captain Lee took care of it and then called me back the next day to tell me what was happening. And basically what she needs to do is post her property, no trespassing. And then once it's posted, then the Sheriff's Department can enforce the law. So without the post, they can't basically enforce the law. So I'm real happy with the Sheriff's Department. I guess we got about the safest city in Florida by now. I think we do. And I appreciate everybody coming today. Any public comment? Any public comment? Please come to the microphone and love to hear you.
My name is Catherine Grain. This is Alan Adams. I didn't know about this meeting till yesterday, so I couldn't get my whole team here. Anyway, we're from the Bonita Dog Park, and I would like to find out about having an agility course built in the dog park. I have included pictures of some of the agility equipment. What I had planned on at first,
To interrupt you, but the dog park is Lee County.
No,
Public comment.
I understand that,
It's not, though.
but it's, we have no control over the dog park.
Yes,
Mayor, we do, we have our own
do.
dog park.
Huh?
We have our own
We
dog
have
park.
our own dog.
Oh,
park.
our own dog park.
It's not Lover's Key out at the.
no, this is
sorry.
In the
Bonita
city.
Springs Dog Park
The end of
on
the-
Terry.
Off of Terry Street.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank
Are
you.
we okay now? Anyway, I had included in this, I did a survey of people, and I have 176 signatures from dog people that utilize the park. And in the beginning, my idea was, we will build these obstacles and maintain the obstacles, and then an ex-board member here, told me, probably not, Bonita would probably prefer to buy their own to make sure it's safety. But anyway, I have everything here, all the signatures, and I would like to present it to the board to see if we could get this done.
we give it to our city clerk.
Okay? Any questions, or?
City manager,
Is there questions to a public speaker?
That's up to the
It's up to the
council
council.
to decide.
you can ask her anything you want.
Mr. Mayor,
as far as I'm concerned. Yes. Yes, Jesse.
could I just ask staff to, Arlene, could you coordinate getting the appropriate folks on staff together to go over this? And then we could have a better discussion once we have all the details from the staff side of that? That'd be great. And you can get it from them? Okay,
If you
perfect.
could just leave your contact information, your phone number, email,
It's all on here.
perfect, with the clerk, then we'll be able to get staff in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It's a very popular dog park.
It is very popular. We love
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much.
it together.
If we can make improvements, we will, certainly will.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I guess we're adjourned, huh? We're out.